Starting a business does not need to take months or years. With the right focus, you can launch and land your first paying customer within 30 days. Without a big budget, without a fancy website, and without a social media following. Most people just overcomplicate launching and never get to their first customer. But in this episode of the Shift Podcast, we're going to show you a step-by-step plan on how to launch and land your first 10 customers within 30 days.
Welcome to the Shift Podcast, where we are all about helping leaders and entrepreneurs and business owners make the shifts that are necessary to go to the next level, both personally and professionally. I'm Matt Ware with my co-host Evan Weiland, and we are in the beautiful Uva Wine Bar in North Colorado Springs, an incredible location. Really grateful for these guys hosting us today. And Evan, this is going to be a really great topic, for us to dive into, because you're right. I think so many people overthink the launch, and they're trying to do so much work to get everything dialed in, and a lot of times it just never gets off the ground in the first place. And so I think what we want to help people do is not get stuck in that spot, but actually take the steps that are necessary to get it off the ground.
Yeah, that's right. Most people do overcomplicate the launch. They do overthink the website and the branding, and then getting a social media following. But the goal isn't to start perfect. It's to generate demand, to see if there is demand for this business. And then, of course, make their first sale.
Yeah.
So it really just comes down to proof of concept. Businesses don't fail because they start too fast, right? Businesses fail because they never made a sale in the first place.
Right. Well, and I think people are so concerned about getting it right. And honestly, getting it right is kind of a myth.
It is.
So, if you're watching or listening, let me just take the pressure off of you and tell you, you're not going to get it right at the beginning, right? And that's not even the goal. The goal isn't to get it right. The goal is to get started. I love, what John Maxwell says. He says, you're never good the first time. And I think we just know that that's true of anything, right? There's nothing that you're good at the first time you do it. Think about when you were a kid. The first time you tried to ride your bike, you weren't good at it. The first time that you picked up a basketball or a football or swung a bat or a golf club, like nothing that you do, including business, are you good the first time. The first time you make a sales call, the first time, that you're going to launch a product or a service, you're not good the first time, but you have to have a first time in order to get good. And I think that's the challenge is people get so stuck in this idea that I've got to get it right that they don't end up starting at all.
That's right.
And I think that's the huge mistake. So the faster you start, the faster you get the first time, the faster you can get the next time, right?
Yeah.
The faster that you can launch, the faster that you can iterate and improve, the faster you get the bad ideas out of the way, the faster the good idea will come.
Yeah. G.K. Chesterton said, if a thing is worth doing, it's worth doing badly.
Yeah.
And so the goal is to just get out of the starting blocks. And even if that means to do it with less information.
Absolutely. Well, and we've talked about this before. Action beats analysis, right? And so this, this kind of harkens back to that episode a little bit, because this is the phase where an entrepreneur could get stuck in analysis for a long time and never actually take action because they're doing the research, they're putting the business plan together, they're dorking around with their website, like all of that stuff.
The old analysis paralysis.
Right. And none of those things are bad, right? They have to come at some point in the business journey. But what we're talking about is getting out of the gate, getting off the starting block, actually launching the thing. And so, I can speak, to my own experience. When I started an ad agency, I didn't actually know how to run ads. And I don't mean that I didn't educate myself, because I did. I took courses and I watched videos and I was in a mastermind and I read books and all of those things. But the reality is I didn't really know how to run an ad campaign until I had a client that I needed to run ads for, right? And so I think there's a difference between knowledge by learning and knowledge by experience, so to speak. And I think, again, this is what we're advocating for people, is to get out of the thinking stage and start the launching phase.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly believe that is the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
You've got to be willing to get out there and look stupid. You've got to be willing to feel like the imposter. And it's not going to feel good, but in this episode, we're going to talk about it. You've got to put the ego aside to launch. For this 30-day launch to work, you've got to put ego aside. We often say it's like building the plane as you fly it.
Right.
That kind of sounds like an irresponsible way of going about an endeavor. So maybe we need to come up with a new phrase.
I mean, it probably is irresponsible in some ways, but maybe that's part of the entrepreneurial spirit too, is there's just a little bit of recklessness, a little bit of irresponsibility for us to take the risk and get going.
Yeah, but I mean, there's not really a better way to say it. I can't think of an alternative.
Right.
Because you do have to just get started.
Yeah.
Not having all the information. If this 30-day launch is going to work. Frank Kern, he's big in the ad space. He's a consultant. And he tells a story of his grandfather. He was his mentor, and one of his grandfather's one of his pieces of advice was, "Thou shalt not mess around." Right, and of course, Frank probably made this very, what's the word I'm looking for? He didn't romanticize it. It was very, he made it very theatrical. Right, I'm sure that Frank made it theatrical, but his grandfather said, "Thou shalt not mess around." Right, you just got to get started.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and so that's what we're talking about today is stop messing around and get started.
So Matt, let's get right into the 30-day step-by-step to launching a business in 30 days. Cool. All right. So the first thing that we're going to come out of the gate with is you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
And this one's going to speak right against your ego. Your ego is going to flare up and say, no, I need to create something authentic,
right? Something
shiny that's going to get me recognition.
Yep.
But there's nothing more humiliating than saying, hey, someone else has already done it. Let me just go follow in their footsteps. Maybe make it better than them. Maybe not. Maybe just do what they did,
right?
And get a piece of the market.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that complicated.
Right.
Right. So it's going to feel really uncomfortable. But go solve a problem in the marketplace, and the chances are you're probably not the first one to go do that.
Right.
You might not be pioneering it.
Right. Well, and the truth is that boring businesses make money.
Yes.
And I know every entrepreneur wants to be like on the cutting edge and have like the newest, follow the hottest trends and have the newest technology and all of that. But the reality is that you can make a lot of money with businesses that are not exciting, that are not glamorous, that are not sexy. Boring businesses make money. I remember when I started my ad agency, and I focused specifically in the early days on, social media advertising, meta ads and things like that. And I remember somebody that I talked to, when I was telling them about what I was doing, they said, well, that's such a saturated space, and kind of in a condescending way a little bit. And the truth is they were right. Yeah. It is saturated. Yep. There are a lot of businesses that run ads on social media, and there are a lot of agencies like mine that, that facilitate all of that. But that doesn't mean you can't make money doing it.
That's right.
And it doesn't mean that I haven't made money doing it. Right. And so here's what I've learned in business. You do not have to be unique. You do have to be effective. Mm-hmm. And I think the allure of being unique sometimes keeps people stuck in this place where they're not willing to just be effective. Mm-hmm. And like you said, do something somebody else is doing, just maybe do it a little bit better or put a little bit of a twist on it, but just be effective. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
All right. So now that we've got ego out of the way, right? And the audience has their ego in check. What we're going to do next is we're just going to go through week 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And we're going to break down what you want to do within those weeks. So week 1, you want to define and validate your product or service. In another episode, Matt, we talk about product market fit, and we don't have time to unpack that here. So go check out that episode. We talk about product market fit. In fact, we talk about the 3 core business functions, and product market fit is number 1.
Yep.
So what you want to do inside of week 1 is you want to define and validate your product or service. You're going to do this by pre-selling. You go out to your friends and family, the people that are closest to you, your peers, your coworkers, and you're going to pre-sell the idea. Get a list of 20 people, talk to them about this thing, and ask them something like this. Is this something that you'd be interested in buying or experiencing or purchasing in the future? And just get a soft yes. You put the information down, and then you're going to turn around and use that list later to get your first few sales. This is a really critical step. If you are going through this process trying to do one sale at a time, you're never going to make it in the 30 days. Okay, so you want to define, validate your product or service through pre-selling. A bonus here would be if you're selling a product or service that you can take money down, that's going to be to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can use that seed money to then be building the thing.
Right.
Even at the same time while you're pre-selling. So an example of this would have been a consulting client that I have. They asked me, what was my advice for getting into a new market? And in this case, it was a new state. And this was my advice. The advice was they need to go and pre-sell. And they're B2B, right? They're B2B, which means business to business. And, they have high ticket items. They weren't selling candy bars and t-shirts, right? They were selling each sale was $1,000 or more, right?
Sure.
Thousands of dollars. And my advice was this: make a list of people, of potential customers from that city.
Sure.
Start calling those people, call them and straight up tell them, hey, we're new to the area. We're thinking about getting into the market. Is this product or service something that you would be interested in? And you begin by talking to 100 people, right? So you talk to 100 people, you get 20 soft yeses, and then you call them 30, 60, 90 days later and sign deals. And in this case, all they needed, Matt, was 5. They needed 5 B2B clients for this thing to be profitable and validated in the new marketplace.
All right, so that's week 1, defining and validating your product or service. Week 2, right, because we're talking about a 30-day launch, right? 4 weeks, we're going to make this thing go. Week 2 is building the minimum viable business.
I like that.
Which we're going to abbreviate as MVB.
Yep.
You've heard of MVP, not most valuable player, but minimum viable product, right, in the business lingo. So this is a little bit of a spin on that, the minimum viable business. And you just have to ask yourself the question, what is the absolute minimum thing I have to have a viable business?
Yep.
You need some kind of a product or some kind of service that you can sell and deliver on. And that's really it, right? I mean, that's all you have to have. And the rest, like you said, we're going to build the plane as we fly it. We're going to figure it out as we go. The reality is you have a business when someone is willing to give you money for the product or service that you offer.
That's right.
That's really all it comes down to in its simplest form. When you have made your first dollar, you are now in business. And the goal in this stage is simply to get to that point, to create something that will position you to make your first dollar. Everything else up to that point is what we call pre-revenue.
Yep.
And the goal is to make the pre-revenue stage as short and small as possible. Yep. We don't like pre-revenue. We like real revenue, right? And so there's always that stage when you're starting a business, but you want this to be as short and sweet as possible. Get to the place where people are exchanging money for the product or service that you sell. And by the way, and you're going to hear us say this maybe several times in several different ways in this episode, but a lot of the things in the first 30 days that keep entrepreneurs busy are things that have nothing to do with building revenue.
That's right.
Things like building your website and designing your logo and your branding and getting business cards and all of that. None of that is starting a business. That will come later. I'm not saying it's not important, but right now you're building a minimum viable business, which you can do without all those things.
Yep. So you now have your list of people that you're going to pre-sell, right? So now it's time to go sell. So, again, as bare bones as possible, you're going to need a 1-page pitch deck. You're going to need a simple payment processor system, right? And a really simple fulfillment method like a Zoom call, right? Or in-person meetings. I'm going to give you a list here, an actual tech stack that you're going to need. It's only 4 things. So first of all, you're going to need your offer. That could be a single page Google Doc, right? So sign up for a Google Workspace trial, free. Right? Zoom account, 5-minute setup, free. Stripe payment processor, right? It's a 10-minute setup, and then you can immediately begin accepting credit cards.
Right.
Number 4, social media DMs, right? You're going to direct message or call these people. Everybody has a cell phone. If you don't have a cell phone, let me know. I'll get you a cell phone. And then a bonus would be a loom.com account. Loom.com or Loom is a screen recording software. That's where you can record your pitches and create your offers and send these to these people so you don't have to do it live.
Yep.
Matt, this sounds a lot like the conversations that we had.
Yeah. Well, this is exactly how when I started my marketing agency, this is exactly what I did. So this isn't us just like, saying, hey, here would be a good idea. This is actually what I did. This is the blueprint that I followed to just create an offer, have a way to reach out to people, have a way to process, their payment, because I was expecting they were going to pay, right? I have that mindset. They are going to pay me for this. So I need to be prepared for that. And, I could do Zoom calls to get, do the customer acquisition and deliver on those products. And then, I used Loom a ton through DMs and all of that to reach out to people and get those conversations going.
Yeah, I remember those conversations. So week number 3, okay, you got to get in front of your customers. You've got to get in front of your customers, and that's without ads and without followers. So we're not asking you to go put 10 grand on your credit card to run ads. Let me give you some really simple marketing advice. And I'm going to use the fisherman analogy, Matt. The fisherman analogy is really 2 types, or in this case, avatars, right? 2 types of fishermen. There's the enthusiast or the hobbyist, and then there is the professional fisherman, right? The guy that does this for a living, for business, right? And so the enthusiast or the hobbyist is going to start their day very, very different than the professional. They're going to start their day with grabbing their fishing tackle out of the garage, tossing it in the truck, maybe grabbing a favorite beverage, something to read, and they're going to go hit their favorite fishing hole, right? Their favorite body of water, right? And if they catch a fish, cool. And if not, cool, right? No worries, no sweat. But the professional fishermen, they're going to start their day very, very differently. They're going to start their day with, what kind of fish do I want to go catch, right? What bait do I take with me? By the way, okay, so I'm gonna go through my tackle. I'm gonna grab that type of bait. I'm gonna go buy some, maybe something fresh. The type of fish that they're going to catch is going to determine the type of tackle or the poles or the boat that they take, the gear that they take with them, right?
Yep.
The tech stack, right? And then they're going to ask themselves, where does that type of fish hang out? What body of water? Am I going to catch bass in the lake? Or am I going to catch catfish in the river? Or am I going to catch tuna in the ocean, right? So very different day, right?
Yeah.
Out of those. And so knowing what type of fish that you want to go catch is critical to the 30-day launch.
Yeah.
You don't have time to send DMs to the wrong person and get crickets. You don't have time for that.
Right.
You don't have time to run ads to the wrong person and get crickets. You have time for that. So you need to come down, you need to sit down and come up with a simple strategy on who it is that you want to go sell to, and then go target those people and get in front of them. So forget logos, right? Forget the website, forget branding. You don't need that stuff. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but what if they try to find my website and they don't find my website and they don't think I'm legit? None of that matters right now. The only thing that they need to do is get on a call with you or in a DM with you. So identify where your ideal customer hangs out, what body of water, right? Use direct outreach. That's totally free. DMs, emails, and phone calls. And then leverage referrals. Ask everybody who buys from you to refer you to their friends or colleagues.
Right. And what we're really focused on in this stage, what we call revenue producing activities, income producing activities. Anything that is not related to producing revenue at this phase of the startup is a waste of time. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds strong to say, but that's just the reality. If you want to start and launch and get paying customers in the first 30 days, you don't have time for anything that does not directly tie to revenue coming in.
Right.
And I'll go out here on a limb and just say this. At the very beginning of starting your business, you don't even have to be able to deliver what you're selling.
Yep.
And I know that may feel scary or counterintuitive or something like that. I mean, how can I sell something if I can't deliver it? But here's what I do. When I started my marketing company, I made getting my first clients the highest priority. And then I figured out how to run ads for them after the fact, right? I was selling advertising services because I knew that was a viable business. Back to the minimum viable business concept. I knew this was a viable business. And I figured I'll learn how to do the ads after I've sold somebody on letting me do ads for them, right? Why spend my time and energy learning how to deliver something before anyone is paying me to deliver it?
That's right.
And that's a tricky thing in this stage of the process. And in some ways, this is, I think, the hardest part because we can easily fill up our days and fill up our time with good things, good activities that don't actually move the business forward. And man, we come back to that theme, I think, in a lot of our episodes, because so many business owners, no matter what stage of the journey they're in, they can do this. We call it fancy procrastination, right? It's ways to fill up my time with things that look good and sound good and all of that, all the things that seem important, but don't actually serve the goal of getting customers. And remember, you don't have a business unless you have someone paying you, giving you money in exchange for the good or the service that you, the product or service that you provide. So that's 100% of the focus at this stage of the process.
Yes. Well, I really like what you said about not needing to know how to run ads before you sell somebody on ads.
Yep.
That gets a lot easier when you're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
When you're out there trying to do something that you've never seen done,
sure,
you're going to have a really hard time convincing yourself that you should do it. And I don't recommend that, by the way. That's where you're going to get into deep waters and in over your head. But if you can go to a mentor, a group of other people who are already doing it that can help you get set up, like it's less daunting.
Yeah.
And you're not making empty promises, right? You're following a proven system. You're not reinventing the wheel. So I just wanted to add that in there. So week four is simple. Week 4 is just scale and do what's working. Double down on what's already working.
Right.
If anything is working, if your DMs are working, do more DMs.
Right.
If you're doing email marketing and the email marketing is working, do more of that. Don't try to spread yourself too thin in this stage. Don't jump to other strategies. Another thing is you want to start collecting testimonials. If you get your first client, don't just look at that first customer or that first sale as a paycheck. Look at them as a video client, a client video testimonial, right? Like get them on video, get them talking about things, use them as feedback.
Yeah.
Ask, why did you hire me in the first place? What really caused you to say yes to me? What was the thing that did that for you? So yeah, video testimonials, that's a hack. You want to do that. Reviews are great, but videos are even better. It's more powerful. And then just simply take that and build a simple, repeatable process for acquiring new customers. So double down, get the testimonials, and make it repeatable. So we just went through week 1 through 4. What we want to talk about next, Matt, is things that will distract you and kill your momentum. And in this 30-day launch, you don't have the luxury of getting distracted. So I want to give you an example of a service that I'm trying to launch in my car detailing business. So as of now, we are retail, which means we work with individuals, right, in detailing their vehicles. But what I want to do is get into what they call the wholesale business, which is where you're working with businesses, with other businesses, and specifically their fleets, right? So multiple vehicles in the same company. And there are a couple of things that I need to remind myself of that I want to share next, almost daily. Ego gets in the way. Right. Ego really gets in the way. I'm like, maybe I need to work on my website, and I need to speak to the fleet people on my website and make sure that they know that they're in the right place. And because if they visit my website, and it's like, what I need to be doing is stop spending so much time looking like a business, and I need to spend time selling like a business.
Yeah, that's good.
And so that means putting off more website editing and putting off more, whatever it is, graphics design, and the things that I need to print. And here's a big one for me. I've been stuck in this trap of relying too much on social media. Like, I just need to post more and then they'll see it.
Sure. Yep.
If I just make a list of customers, pick up the phone and pre-sell them, it's done way more in the last week than in the last 6 weeks.
Right.
Just picking up the phone and making phone calls.
Right. Well, and I think sometimes while social media has a place, the reality is posting doesn't always equal customers, but conversations equal customers.
That's right.
Right.
Exactly right.
And sometimes the post is what opens the door, but if you're relying only on the post, only on the social media, and you're not taking that next step, that's where I think a lot of people maybe can miss the boat.
Yeah.
And again, like when we're talking about a 30-day launch, we're just talking about get your first paying customers. Everything is about getting your first paying customers. And I'll just insert something here, from a marketing standpoint. that I think is important to understand, warm market and cold market. And you might have heard those terms thrown around. Warm market is simply people who already know you or they know of you. These are the contacts in your phones, right? This is your followers or your friends on your social media accounts. This is the best starting point when you're launching, because this is the most likely place that you're going to find your first dollars from, especially in the first 30 days. And it doesn't even mean necessarily from those people, but from people they know, from people they would connect you with or refer you to or whatever. And I would say, don't be afraid of your warm market. There's this interesting thing I think that happens with entrepreneurs that on the one hand, we're excited about what we're doing, but we don't want to tell anybody that's super close to us about it, right? Because it may be the fear of failure, or if it doesn't work, the embarrassment or whatever. And I would just say this: people who know you want to help you. They want you to be successful. Even if they're not your ideal client, they know people who are. And so if you let your warm market know what you're doing, there's a huge likelihood that is going to result in sales. And I would also say this just as a point of like practicality. If you're starting a business and you have no money, you should also have no shame, right? In asking for money, right? In trying to make sales. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? They tell you no, and you already have no customers. You already have no money. So you haven't lost anything. I think this is part of just the entrepreneurial journey that we have to embrace. So that warm market, I think, is a great place to start. And then you can move into the cold market. Those are people who, as of right now, don't know you yet. They haven't heard of you yet. You're not on their radar. And I would say in most cases, there's exceptions, I'm sure, but in most cases, you're always better off testing in your warm market and preferably getting a customer or a client or a handful before you go into the cold market.
That's right.
Because what that does is it builds your confidence, and it also allows you to get some of that social proof, Evan, like you were talking about, the video testimonial or the review or whatever it is that you're trying to leverage. You can get that in your warm market and bring that to your cold market. And here's a little pro tip. Sometimes you can even do work for free, pro bono. I'm not saying I advocate it necessarily, but sometimes if you'll do something for somebody in your warm market that you're not necessarily getting paid for, but the exchange is that you're getting that video testimonial or that review or that referral, now you can leverage that into your cold market and very authentically say, I'm already doing this. I already have clients. I already have customers, and I can show it. I can prove it, which now gives you credibility when you move into the cold market. So just a few things to think about, as you're wrapping your mind around a 30-day launch.
Yeah. The differentiation between cold market, warm market is just genius. Like if you're going to spend all your time reaching out to people that don't know you, you're probably not going to make the 30-day launch.
It's going to be tough.
It's going to be really, really tough.
Yeah.
Doable, but this is a chances game, right? Like, what are the chances of me pulling this off? So I love the fact that you can reach out to the warm market, and yes, you're right. They're going to be way more susceptible to giving you social proof. And like unfiltered feedback.
Right. Which you need.
Yeah. And referrals, like they're going to do all those things.
Right.
Like I love that warm market concept. And there's a psychological barrier there, right? When you go out and try to sell for the first time, selling to someone that you've never met gives you this crazy fear of rejection. Right. Like, this is going to hurt.
Right.
Don't worry though. You're not going to die. I promise. I've experienced these things.
Right.
But it's a lot easier to sell to people you know.
For
friends
sure.
and family. It's a lot easier. And I want to just reiterate what you said. Dude, go out. Tell them that you're just trying to build a proof of concept. You don't need to charge them, but in response, this is what I need.
Here's what I'd like from you.
I would love this from you.
Yep.
And then take that to the to your cold market. Love it. So yeah, leverage existing trust is, I think, a simple way to put that. Leverage existing trust. Go out there, hustle your existing network, and then, like Matt just said, but think about the cold market later.
Yep.
And Matt, if we haven't said it already, this 30-day launch, we're talking about launching a business in 30 days.
Right.
But this applies to a product or a service too.
Sure.
It's the same thing.
Yep.
It applies to the cold market, warm market audience.
Yep.
It applies to the MVP. It applies to all the things that we went through in that week 1 through 4. And so, shamelessly, Matt and I plug consulting in most of our episodes. And so we just want to say, if you're struggling with launching a business or just that mental barrier of how do I start? Where do I start?
Right.
What should I start on? Or launching a product or a service, get in touch. Our contact info is in the description below. And we would love to just have a 30-minute free consult and give you some information there and see what comes of it. So definitely reach out. So if launching a business in 30 days seems intimidating, it doesn't have to be. Follow this step-by-step plan that we just laid out. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Shift Podcast. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, leave a few comments below on some things that you're trying to launch, and we hope to see you on the next one.